But honestly, we're very, very happy to be able to do this. And so welcome to joining us. This is the Double Six group. And this is a place where we're gathering to be able to just hang out together. We're going to be, learning and from each other, and where we're going to be able to actually get ahead in life, whether it's about finances or business, investments, entrepreneurship. Every week we want to be able to just feature something that may be a topic of interest to somebody, the average person, so that many of us now have a chance to be able to tap into a system that's really existing, and to be able to actually, earn a double six-figure income. So if that's something of importance to you and to maybe somebody that you know that would like to find out more, then please ask them to tap in with you, okay? And we're actually going to be also posting this video on YouTube later, so you can try and find us and like and subscribe to catch up on the ones that you've missed throughout this time. Okay, so our group again is called the Double Six Group, and with us tonight, I want to welcome back from the last session. This is only our second session, but we want to welcome back the same two guys who really made a difference and teaching me so much just last week even. But I've worked with them for a little while now. So tonight I'd like to welcome back Jimmy Wu. He is the founder of the Double Six Group. He very successful at a very young age. He's not only just a six-figure earner with his IT professional job, but he's also an investor, and he started a company really young. He was only 25 when he began and operated his own business. And that to me is just so very impressive, because not only is he running this business very successfully, but he's managed to help so many others do the exact same thing. And on the panel tonight also is Key. Key to me has become a great friend. He's taught me a lot about finances, and plus I don't understand how he can actually pull the time to hang out with us for the next half hour, 45 minutes, to explain a little bit more to us, because honestly he's a director of compensation with a major Canadian bank, and that means he works a 9-to-5 job. He's still out there helping people every single day, and yet he owns his own business, and he has helped so many people through his business. And I don't understand how he actually has time to get married and have a beautiful baby who's now 6 months old, little Anna. So, she must be, getting to you to figure out, oh, I'm going to walk and run soon, right? So
yeah, can't wait till that day to come.
Yeah, I'm going to chase after her,
Thank you,
right?
Sheila.
So
Yeah, thanks, Sheila.
this is a great time. We're going to just try and explain and get some things going, because our topic tonight was how to take your money and actually multiply it by 10 times. And for me, that's always been important, because I've always been one of those people who worked multiple jobs and still barely managed to just actually have just a couple of dollars in savings, never mind double, triple. But you're trying to tell me that I can actually 10 times that amount. So Jimmy, can you give me a little bit of insight as to how I could actually do that then?
Sure, absolutely. So I think money is first of all, thank you, Sheila, for inviting us today's Zoomcast. Really appreciate it, and very happy to be here to share anything that I can with you guys and the world. So I think money is a very interesting topic. Everybody wants to make more money, but not a lot. But a lot of people talk about it. All right, whether it's their personal finances or how to get ahead in life. And I think it's a topic that we should be sharing more information about. So the first thing I want to talk about to teach you guys how to 10x your money is through saving, right? Is through saving. Earning money is actually extremely difficult, right? It's difficult for a lot of people, for 90% of the population. So what we want to do is, it's not about how much you can earn, it's about how much you can keep at the end of the day, right? So it's about how much you keep. So the first thing I want to talk about is something called the 45-year plan. So the 45-year plan is when you start at the age of 25, you start working, you get a job, right? You follow the traditional mentality that everybody else follows, work for somebody else, find a job and work pretty much 45 years of your life for somebody else, and retire at the age of 60. I think it's now 67 in Canada. It's older now, right? And it's going to get even older. And as the millennial population, they're relying on the government or pensions, right, to support them. But I'm telling you right now, like by the time we reach the age of 67, there will be no money left for us. Okay, so you have to come up with your own plan. You can't rely on somebody else. So the key thing is learning how to build wealth over time, over your lifetime, right? So it's not about quick money. It's about how can you build wealth over the long term, over a long period of time, over the next 40, 45, 50 years. So it's about having money work for you, right? And if you ever haven't read this book, there's a great book, Cash Flow. There's a topic in it. It's by Robert Kiyosaki called the Cash Flow Quadrant. So in there, he talks about these four ways that you can earn money, right? Through E, which is employee, S, which is self-employed, and then B, if you own a big business, or I, which is income. So you want to progress through those four kind of, I call it like tiers of progression, right? So you do want to start off by getting a job and building experience, but you don't want to do that for 45, 50 years. That's what most people do. So you want to move towards the other end of the spectrum, which is investment, right? And having money work for you instead of you working for money. So when you have your money working for you, one of the key principles behind that is interest. Okay, so I'm sure you guys have heard of interest, right? You get interest on your credit card, on everything. Anytime you borrow or you have debt, then you pay some sort of interest to somebody. This is how a lot of the major banks, Canadian institutions, they make money through this interest principle, right? They charge you interest on everything. So compound interest is I think Albert Einstein said this, right? Or maybe not Albert Einstein, but somebody said this: the compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it, and he who doesn't pays it. So you got to think about which one you are, right? And I'll give you I'll give you an example on this. So let's say you started saving money at a young age. So my first tip is start saving when early, right? Because time is on your side. So if you started saving, let's say at the age of 25, you save $500 a month. Okay. Did you know that at 4% interest rate, okay, plus inflation, 4% interest rate monthly, if you just say $5, if you were disciplined and just say $5 a month, by the age of 65, you would have $1 million.
Wow.
Okay. Okay. At 4% interest rate. But if you just increase that interest rate by 2 extra percent to 6% interest rate, okay, you would have double that money. Okay. So the more money you make, the faster the money comes to a point where it's self-sustaining, right? Your money is working for you. So you have to keep in mind, like even a single 1%, 2%, small interest rates make a huge, huge difference in the numbers at the end of the day. Okay. You might not think it's small, and that's where it comes in, right? You think it's only 1% interest, it's only 2%. Now think about the major credit cards. They're charging you the 19.99% interest rate. Okay.
Some of them are
Now how much are they making? Right. So I was just talking about 4%, 2%, right? They're charging you 20%. So it's a huge difference because it compounds, right?
Yeah.
So you have to understand.
Yeah, it's sad. Sometimes even go to those like called auto lending kind of type of thing. It's like such as payday loans. So they charge you exorbitant rates like around as high as 50%. So that's just crazy. That's
50%. Who charges you 50%?
Yeah, payday loans. Those guys
Payday
all do
loans.
this.
Oh.
Yes.
So those
They're
are
loan
the
sharks.
present day loan sharks.
Exactly.
I was just going to
That's
say.
exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
Just to continue, what Jimmy said about saving and compound interest. So I have a personal story to share. So I have been working about 15 years. So the first 5 years, I didn't have a car because I really understand the power of saving. So I just save quite a lot of money on the side. Even at that time, my salary wasn't high. I was just entry level. I wasn't even a permanent resident, so sort of an international worker on the work permit. So the pay is not that high, but still try my best to save quite a bit of money. You say, so over 5 years course, I put aside about 70 grand. Just because I don't have a car, don't pay insurance and all the maintenance fees. So I just put that into the stock market, and then I'm not doing anything fancy. It just put into some broad-based mutual funds. Although nowadays I think I could have put into ETF to save the fees, but just even with that, I'm earned about on average 10% every year in the last 10 years. Guess what happened? Just like Jimmy said, it doubled. So that 70,000 has turned into a, a, a quarter million.
Wow,
So
that's more than
let's
double.
say if I'm doing nothing, I just keep into those broad-based index fund. If I continue to make 10% return in the next 30 years, by the age I retire, I'm gonna have $3 million, $3.5 million just on that saving. So basically, right now I can stop saving, but I can pretty much have 3.5 millions when I retire.
2.5
Let's say
million.
even
Wow.
let's say even I don't make 10%. I don't make that high return. I just even get 5%, like 50 changes to make it. That's still like $1.5 million. So that's huge. So that just to Jimmy's point, you definitely want to be the one to earn compound interest, not definitely not the one to pay the compound interest.
Oh, wow. Okay. So where were you guys when I was a lot younger and trying to figure all this out, right? Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, but saving is hard. It's not easy. It definitely
Very
take a
hard.
lot of sacrifices because
Yeah.
we all have limited financial resources. So it's
Right.
all about making choices, right? So I'm not suggesting you should deprive yourself all kinds of pleasures. So basically, but you have to spend on things what truly matters to you, right? You have
Right.
to make a choice and be disciplined. And like in terms of the budgeting and goal setting, that's also absolutely critical. You have to
Yes.
break it down to the daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly basis and figure out how much money you can spend, how much money you want to save. Because if you don't do that, I don't know if you heard about this thing called the lifestyle creep. So basically,
Lifestyle
people,
creep.
when you're working, climbing the corporate ladder, whatever you do, because your earning power will also grow with your age, right? So you definitely will make more money in the future than now, but a lot of people uh, adjust like their lifestyle according to their income increases, but also sometimes even they increase their lifestyle before they they got pay raise, right? So you can imagine, it doesn't matter how much money you make, but at the end of the day, if you don't control your spending, you're gonna save probably even less and less. So that's gonna help you to achieve your financial
It's
freedom.
it's called
Uh,
broke at a higher level.
exactly,
A
it's
lot of
exactly.
people they you can make more money, but if you spend it all, then it doesn't help you, right? It's not about how much you
No.
make, it's about what you save. So it's the net.
Yeah,
Um,
Uh,
and people have this kind of misconception about what does it mean to be wealthy. There's a good book. The book Jimmy mentioned, that's definitely a good start. But also then another book. It's called the Millionaire Next Door. So that's a great book because that tells a lot about what truly means to be wealthy and how to get there, right? So what the book said is. You definitely have to have a frugal lifestyle, and then people tend to equate being wealthy with material possessions. They want to have lots of fancy houses, cottages, cars, but that doesn't mean anything unless you have to convert that into your net worth, because the net worth is the thing that truly matters to you. Because uh, based on that, you can basically can kind of measure yourself whether basically what the financial independent means is how long can you survive if you stop working or getting so-called active income, right?
mhm.
So basically you want to keep receiving passive income enough to cover all your living expenses. If you come to that stage, that means you're truly financially independent.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I
yeah,
think I,
so I actually want to talk. So, one of the things you have to understand is you have to break down. So this is probably tip number three: is break down your whatever your wherever you're spending money into what we call assets or liabilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can go through a pretty simple quiz on this. If I told you. Like obviously you want to have more assets than liabilities, right? So for
Mm-hmm.
example, a car is what we consider a liability, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a car depreciates over time. So even though if you invest in the car, you're actually losing money over car because
mm,
as soon as that brand new car hits the road, you've already
Yep.
lost half the money. The
Yep.
value of that car is
yeah,
already gone down by
yeah,
half, right?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
An asset is something like real estate or like a home, right? If you buy a house, that's considered an asset. So if you have an asset, that would appreciate over time, right? So that's where you want to put your money. You want to put your money in investment vehicles or investment assets, things like real estate, things like even like he was mentioning, like the market, right? So it's investment vehicle depending on your exposure to risk. So depending on where you want to invest your money. So if I said a credit card, is that an asset or a liability?
Liability. Yeah, because to me,
Liability.
it's just that attraction factor of, oh, you like, especially for the very young. Oh, I got free money, like,
It's not
and
yours, right?
but it's exactly, and you're just spending it,
Right.
but they don't realize at the very beginning, and I'm sure I didn't at the very beginning either, thinking, oh yeah, okay, I'll just pay it back. But it takes a lot more for me to actually have the funds to pay it back, right? So
Yeah, if
the
you're
smart way,
disciplined,
yes.
right. So if you're disciplined enough to have a credit card, then it could potentially be an asset. But if you overspend on your credit card and you carry a huge balance, then that's obviously a liability, right?
Liability.
Depends on how you use it
Yeah.
as well.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah.
very scary.
So just on this part, so because credit card, it's the type of a debt people are usually carrying. Just like Jimmy mentioned, it comes with such high interest rate, but also those kind of so-called consumer loans. It's actually very damaging to your financial future because once you start to borrow using the borrowed money, well, first of all, you're gonna have less financial flexibility just in case something happens in your life. Have your pet is sick and you need to fix it up. You have a car accident, you need extra money to fix your cars, right? All those kind of like expenses, unexpected expenses, sometimes it's not cheap. But once you don't have extra saving on the side, your flexibility is really limited. So just imagine you're already kind of have debt up to your neck, and then right now you have the big expenditure need to spend on. You have no choice, and guess what's the next thing you can do? You have to go out and borrow more money, right? So it just creates this kind of called the death spiral. You're gonna keep borrowing and borrowing until one day you just cannot keep up and have to file for bankruptcy or get some credit counseling, those kind of help.
So
Oh man.
so that's probably tip number 4 is don't carry a balance on any type of high interest money that you've borrowed, right? So one of them would be a credit card, or if you go to any type of loan shark, do not carry high interest accruing balances because that's what's going to kill you over the long run, right?
Yeah, because those interests are compound interests, right?
Yes.
So once you have that, you cannot pay off the balance right away, and then you will never be able to catch up. And it's mathematically proven that's the case. So you cannot cheat that. Once you unhook, you will never get it off.
Okay, so let's just sidetrack just a little bit. I mean, you're just talking about debt. So many of my friends always say, "Oh yeah, I'm not really worried." I mean, like, because I sort of have this little bug about that. You still own your home. You're 60 something and you're still working, and most I'm a little bit older than you guys, so my parents actually have relatives who all retired at 55 because back in the day 55 was the retirement age, especially for the better jobs, especially in Asia, like Hong Kong and stuff, right? So they all retired at 55, and when I'm asking my friends here, and some of them are like 65 or even older, I said, but you're still working. And it's like, because you have to, or because you really, really like your job, which is fine. If you really love your job, that's great, right? But she said, actually, that I have to. And I'm going, oh, okay. So like, why? Like, she goes, I have debt, right? And I'm going, oh, you mean like credit cards or something? And she goes, well, yeah, credit cards. And then I said, did you not pay off your house? I mean, you had a really good job. I mean, like both of you work for the government or, whatever, right? And they said, well, we have to pay that too. And I'm going, okay, so where's the difference? Everybody's telling me that there's good debt and bad debt, right? But, what do you term as good debt and bad debt? Or is there such a thing? Because to me, debt is debt, right? So,
yeah. So that's a very common misconception perceived by a lot of people. Just because it's at first it came from the culture, and everybody think carrying a debt is okay. but it's not because it depends. It really depends, right? So think about if you're running the business and you borrow money to invest something, such as buying some equipment, expand your business. So basically, you're putting that money into some income-producing activities. So that's a good debt, although it has some risk associated to it. So I don't think it's not today's topic. But on the other hand, such as consumer loans, consumer debt, that's absolutely damaging because just like Jimmy mentioned, you buy something, you put it into a depreciating asset, and then it doesn't generate any income. So basically, you're just paying the interest for nothing, right? So so that you're supposed to save that money to on the side to build your financial future, but you basically have to pay for something for something you have done in the past. It has nothing to do with the future. So that's really bad because if you don't have enough saving on the side when you reach to the retirement age, that means you have less money left there for you to depend on when you lose your earning capability, right? So here's an interesting statistic in Toronto. So if you look at the average net worth of the retiring family, it's around $1.2 million. But what's interesting is that that number includes a lot of stuff, like your house, your cars, all kind of assets can be converted into cash, so it's all inclusive. But think about how much does a single detached house cost in Toronto? It's probably around $1 million.
$1 million. Yeah.
So if you deduct the 1.2 deduct 1 million from the 1.2, you pretty much on average, every family has about $200,000 left, and they probably have another 20 to 30 years to live. I don't know. It's mathematically, and maybe some family can pull this off just by decreasing your living standard. I'm probably going to be reduce their living standard significantly from their active working life. But for me, that's not going to be enough for 200,000 to live on for another 30 years.
Yeah.
So that's why you should consider it. Like I would always break down everything that I spend my money into what I mentioned before, right? Is it an asset or is it a liability, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're spending money on like clothes, like on watching movies, like going out and run, this is all what's considered leisure, right? Which is all liability because it doesn't bring you any type of money. So you can put all that stuff on a credit card and compound interest on that, and that's what basically kills you, right? Things that
Absolutely.
you may not need, but just or like instant gratification, right? We call it. But if you have debt and you invest in like a house and you know that house is going to appreciate in time, even though you're borrowing money, right? You're borrowing it to make more money, which is good, or you're borrowing it to put in other type of investments, right? Which is a good kind of debt. So it just depends on
Yeah.
how you spend the money that you borrow.
Yeah, that instant gratification, it's really truly a problem because unlike the business finance, right? When you have a business, you plan out your finances. It's relatively easier. Why I'm saying easy because there's no behavior or emotional factors kicking because you can be almost as objective as you want because you want the business to survive. So you have to be ruthless. You cut all kind of necessary expenditures. But when it comes to the personal finances, some financial gurus said, 80% is about behavior and 20% about knowledge. So behavior is play a significant part because a lot of people cannot differentiate from wants and needs. Sometimes they blend those two concepts and they spend and waste the money, and at the end they justify, I really need that. So they treat the luxury lifestyle as a necessity for their life, but in most cases that's not true. Just on that the mortgage part, I think a lot of people missed. I think it's about because of legacy. Our parents' generation, the boomers, just like Sheila you mentioned, they typically had a good pension plan, right?
Yeah.
Just think about that scenario I described. 1.2 net worth Canadian retiring family. If they have a good pension income on the side, right? So her ex-employer promised them to keep paying them until they die. So that $200,000 probably it's okay because they have extra pension income to subsidize that.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that kind of pension, you think right now nowadays nobody can, especially if you work in the private sector.
Yeah.
That pension type of pension plan is called a defined benefit pension plan. That is long gone. So we're like, I don't think
No.
I'm not even entitled to that kind of pension, right? So I have to depend on myself to make sure I have enough money
That's
to
right.
save on the side.
That's right.
So that fundamentally changing how do we treat like a mortgages, right?
Yeah.
In the past, people just say, hey, bank told me to pay it off in 30 years. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to pay off in 30 years. But that theory doesn't work for us anymore. Just like I mentioned earlier, I have a house worth 1 million. My net worth is 1.2. Deduct from the house, I have not much money left. So that drives me to be proactively to pay off my debt quicker than what's planned by the banks. So if you can do the math, you can use Excel. There's lots of tool there.
So Key, sorry, one question I have. So you're
Yeah.
suggesting that you should definitely invest in real estate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Real estate is well, typically most people do, right? Like when
Yes.
they eventually you want to own your own home or buy a house, right? Even though in Canada right now, especially in Toronto, the market's crazy. If you just live on an average salary, even above average salary, it's very difficult to buy a house. But ideally, that's the direction you want to head, right? To own your
Yep.
own house. Okay. And then
Well,
with that comes with mortgages.
mortgage,
You're gonna
yes.
have to borrow money. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, most of us would have to, I think. I mean, there
Okay.
are very few
So
working people who can just outright buy something cash, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
no, yeah, I
yeah.
don't know. So not realistically, right? Unless you
No.
inherited the money from
Yes.
another generation. But if you're on your own and you want to buy a
Yeah.
house, first you would have to save up for a down payment, right? So I think that
Mhm.
would be the first tip is save up money for a down payment on a house,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then look into invest in real estate. And then once you invest in the real estate, that's where the mortgage comes in, right? Because you're gonna have to get a mortgage. So you can
Yeah.
continue on from maybe that point. So once you have a mortgage, right, the bank will define like your payments
Yeah.
for that mortgage, right? And typically
Yeah.
it's what, 30 years, is it? 25
Yeah,
years?
they give you a choice, 25, 30 years. They typically
30 years.
recommend you to keep it longer because they want you to be on hook longer. That's how they make money. They always try to put in something nicely. Hey, if you stretch a longer period, you can pay less on a monthly basis. So why don't you use the money to, live a little, have a vacation, or you can, I can refer you to my friend working in some mutual fund industry. You can invest, buy some funds, invest in yourself, right? It sounds very they put it in a very nice way, but because they have financial incentive for you
Right.
to keep
So
stretch that
Yes.
debt as long as possible because it come with a huge interest cost, and then
right.
because it was spread on a monthly basis, people don't usually realize how expensive it can be.
Yeah. And
Uh,
how much is it? How much is it? So for example, I want to buy a house in Toronto for $1 million, right? And
yeah,
I put down like a 20% down payment. So just simple numbers, 20,
yeah,
200,000 and then $800,000 mortgage. Okay.
yeah.
So how much are you actually paying? Even though, they tell you it's such a low rate right now,
Mm-hmm.
2%, 2.9, whatever percent, right?
Yeah.
3%.
Mm-hmm.
How much are you actually paying in interest for like an $800,000
Yeah.
loan in 30
So
years?
I'm not a human calculator. I just based on my experience. So let's say if the family
Typically,
has
percentage wise.
two
Yeah.
hundred thousand mortgage at the 4.5%,
Okay.
that gonna translate into about 80% interest in total. So basically, you probably that means you buy one house, you have to pay back the bank with enough money to buy two houses.
Okay.
So
So
that's an
basically, you're
actual
buying
house
the
you
bank.
just throw into the water. That's
So
it.
basically, you're buying the bank a house. Like they let
That's
you
right.
borrow
You gave them a
borrow
free
enough
house.
money. I'll lend you money for you to buy a house, but then you're
That's
going
right.
to buy me a house as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? That's how much you're actually paying.
Here's a catch. I know a lot of people are saying, "Oh, right now interest rates is very low,
I was
so
just going to say
why
that.
don't we take advantage of that?"
Hmm.
Well, the good news is that's a good news for a lot of borrowers. But the bad news, if it's a low now, then eventually they have to come come back up.
Back up.
If you look at the historical average mortgage rates in the last 3 decades, the mortgage rate is usually between 10 to 15%.
Wow.
If you factor that numbers in. I'm not saying, I'm not predicting the interest rate. It's really hard. Nobody can. But I'm just saying from a risk management side, right? If you really, the Bank of Canada has to jack up the interest rate because inflation with all those kind of fiscal quantitative stimulating going inside the economy right now, is probably have to deal with that in the future. But if they really jack up that interest rate back to the historical average, that means you have to pay bank with enough money to buy 3 houses.
3 houses.
That's another house you just give to the bank.
I buy you a house, but you buy me 3 houses in the
That's right.
meantime.
Oh my
So
goodness.
it's
That's how
a crazy
that's
amount
how
of
it
interest that
works.
you're paying,
That's
So-
how
paying
it
to the bank.
works.
So many of us who are stuck, like I know many people who are stuck and they're the ones who have to, like, remortgage, refinance, right?
Yes.
So they just purchase for the bank, like, additional houses, right? Because they're just
Yeah.
on the hook. And yet they've
Yeah.
gained absolutely nothing because they're still stuck in that house, right?
That's
You've
right.
got nothing else.
So here's the thing, right? I think one of the key things is don't pay the bank on their schedule, right? Once they give you their schedule, you realize that you're paying them, you're buying them 1, 2, 3 additional houses for them, not for you,
Yeah,
right? Off
that's
of
right.
interest.
Yeah.
Then you can typically, that money can be your money that you could be using somewhere else, right? You can be out of debt a lot quicker than the 30 years that they've set for you.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes it even offsets because people say, well, why don't I take my money and invest it somewhere else? But it's, I think he can talk to more this point, like, because the question is going to be, well, if I have money, right, why should I pay back the bank at 3% interest versus investing it somewhere so I can get 6%?
Yeah. So here's an interesting fact. When you get this kind of so-called financial advices, sometimes it's not really financial advices because the people talk to you told me about this probably have some financial incentive for you to invest something. So they have a vested interest, and they probably get a cut, such as in some form of fees. So for example, just pick one typical example. If you invest money in a mutual fund, if you talk to a financial planner, they probably pull up some nice looking charts, glossy with lots of colors. They say, hey, look at the stock market. You buy this fund, you can, in the past, you can pretty much get the 10% return on average every year. While you have to be careful about the fine print, right? So they're not gonna give you for free the 10%. They're gonna charge you on average 2%, called the management expense ratio. So basically, you give them money to manage your money and investment, right? So 10% minus 2, that's 8%. But doesn't matter which vehicle you input in, but you're gonna have to pay tax in some kind. Let's say the tax authority gonna take 50%, so that 8%
Capital
now
gains, 50%
that becomes
capital gains.
4%. That's not as high as 10% they promise you. You have to be careful. And here's another interesting. A lot of people are just thinking in terms of percentages, and the percentage depends on the base of the dollar amount. A lot of people don't usually stop there. They're saying, hey, even based on this thing you told me about, I only get the 4% at the end. But right now, my interest rate is like I say, I can get 3% the rate from the money I borrow. So they probably still feel like, hey, it's not too much of a bad deal. Well, here's the case: you have to be careful because you have to convert that percentage into dollar amount, right? Just like you're running a business budgeting, you have to be thinking about how much money I put in, how much I get back. So what I mean is, let's say now I'm carrying a $1 million mortgage, right? I paying 4%. That means on average I pay about $40,000 the interest payment on average, approximately. But on the other hand, I get this 4% return on this investment, but I don't have $1 million to invest right now. I probably can, at maximum, I save $25,000. And then 25,000 multiplied by 4%, that's about $1,000. So now I can compare. I pay $40,000 to get $1,000 return, right? When you convert that into a dollar amount, that's become absolutely ridiculous if you follow this kind of advices.
So what you're saying is you can't just directly compare the interest rate, right?
No,
So
you have to
10%
convert into on
versus
the
4,
dollar basis.
you have to convert it to dollar basis, right? So even if you have money to invest, even if it's a higher interest rate, just like he mentioned, if you invest it even at a 10%, you may not be getting the 2% or 3% that you could have. The money that you would have got is a lot more if you paid off, if you
you pay
started
off.
paying down your
Yeah.
loan,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So here's a lot of financial gurus saying when they seeing those people making this kind of stupid mistake, they're saying people typically they're spending $1 to make 50 cents, right? So that's what's that about.
Okay,
Right.
so it's for lack of a better phrase, then we're truly being ripped off because they know how to market, right? They
Exactly.
they
Yeah.
they know exactly how to target and say to you the right things because
Yeah.
it sounds so good,
It
right?
is.
You
Yeah.
know, oh, you're saving or you're making an extra 2%. Well,
Hmm.
you know, whatever it is, it sounds good enough that they're gonna. So many people have fallen into the trap and bought into
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
So
And sometimes you cannot people by doing that because not everybody knows how money works. Just like I spent 20 years in school getting all kinds of degree certificate to figure this out, but average people probably doesn't. And also you have to be good at math, right? Just like you have to do the math, do all kind of conversion to make sure to make mathematical sense.
right.
That's why a lot of people cannot do this kind of thing. You have to look out, find some technology to help you
So,
to do that.
Okay.
so Key, what do you suggest? Like, what's the best solution? So instead of following the bank and paying off your mortgage in 30 years, like the plan they set for you, right? What's the better option here? What can you do to get ahead, right?
Yeah, so definitely. Uh, so the personal finance, I typically break down into the offense side and then the defense side. So the offense side, definitely you need to invest something. You know what you're doing, get the good return. So that's another topic. But let's talk about saving a bit because that's usually make a huge difference in terms of the finances and outcome, right? So like we mentioned earlier, you definitely need to be very conscious about saving. A lot of little small things could add up a huge amount in the future with the compound interest rate and all that. And also the debt payment. That's definitely another thing people should look at because if you uh, so on average, a Canadian household paid about 30% before tax income on the debt payment. So imagine they could save that money in for the saving for the invest in the future. So that's a huge benefit for them. But a lot of people don't think that way. So link back to what I said earlier. If you can pay off your debt, particularly the mortgage earlier, let's just go for it. That's because uh, so treat it like investment because you're gonna definitely save the interest for sure that you have to pay in the future, right? If you invest something, there's no guarantee you'll get a return. But if you pay off the debt quicker, that's a guaranteed return, and no question with that. And then you have to do the math, but by yourself, always in the help, some help, technologies, some tool to help you to navigate that. That's very important.
Okay.
Right. So what do you personally do, Key? Like, what do
Yeah.
you use to
So
manage?
so I have been struggling quite a bit in the past. So at the beginning, I was single, living in an apartment. I didn't own a house, so just simply paying the rent. My personal finance was quite simple. And then a few years later, I got married, and then this thing you look at the background, it comes with a huge bill. And then after purchasing that, I just realized, hey, it's different now because I used to have a lot of saving on the side, like I mentioned earlier, but now I suddenly carry $1 million mortgage. I really stressed out, right? So the first few months, I sometimes I can't even lost sleep. I just feel like, what if I lost my income? We're gonna be kicked out of this house because we cannot afford it if I lose my job. So that's a huge stress. So, and then with a family growing, baby coming on the way, lots of expenditures, every month I just feel I was dreadful about doing my own bills, and then just feel this kind of heaviness coming over me once a month. I had to pretty much lock myself in the room to go through all my statements, bill, and figure out a payment schedule to make sure on which day my bank account has the exact amount to pay off the bill. Sometimes they automatically deduct those payments. If I don't have enough money there, they're gonna charge me some additional fees or fines, or even hurt my credit rating. So that's stressful. I understand a lot of people cannot keep up the budget. I understand that. I can't blame them. It's really difficult. So that's why I start to look around, see what else are out there, because we're in the 21st century. We can use technology, do a lot of great things. So I search around, the bank, sometimes the banks offer those kind of free apps. They do have some sort of a budgeting functionality, but it's not great because think about it, they cannot give you something for free without asking for any return. And because it's typically a marketing tool once you use for a while. If I feel like it doesn't really help me to have a full control of my personal finances. So one day, maybe it's by chance, by destiny, or luck, I was lucky, and I find this technology come from the U.S. It's new to Canada. It's called the Debt Shredder program. So it's a computer-based program. It's a cash flow management system and building with a budgeting function. But the great thing about it is not just about budgeting, but also has the built-in algorithms about how to pay off the debt as quickly as possible. And that's the same thing that a lot of like banks and large corporations, the same concept, the same methodology they're using. Because I study finance, when I came across this technology, I knew it right away because that could help me to get really ahead in terms of personal finances.
So is this program
Wow.
to
So
help you manage your money better? Like, is it telling you to make extra
Absolutely.
payments, or is it like what is it doing to help strategize, and what kind of results has it generated for you?
That's interesting. I don't want to get into technicality there. It's going to take several hours. It's going to put everyone into sleep. Think about a GPS system you use in a car, right? If you want to get somewhere, you punch in your destiny, and then you just, the GPS is going to tell you where to go, where to turn, where to stop, which direction to go. Like, right? It's so simple. Give you the day by day and then step by step instructions, and that's exactly that software is does. So the goal is to be financially free. So that get rid of debt is the top priority. And then I telling program my monthly income. It's basically like basic a cash flow scenario. I tell them what bills I have, the payment date, the income on which day will have money to come into my bank account. I just like set it up once, and then the program was going to predict exactly the path day by day. Uh, which day I should move money, from what account to what account. I just simply follow along. So people don't have a lot of financial knowledge to use that. Just like you use your GPS, you don't have to be a satellite or computer engineer to learn how to use GPS. You just simply follow along.
So you're
so
saying
it's
right
like
now, everybody who has a mortgage and they're using the traditional way, which is following the bank schedule to pay off, right,
Mm,
is
yep,
actually they're paying a lot more money in interest to the bank than they should be, right?
that's
So
right.
there's a better way. There's a quicker
Mm,
way without having to without having to change your payments, meaning you don't have to make any extra payments, just with the current way that you're paying without any extra money going in. Obviously, if you pay more money to the bank, then obviously it's going to be faster, right? But
yep.
assuming you didn't have to pay any extra money, just by following this GPS, it's going to help you save, is this thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, right?
Yeah, so that's why I personally think math is important, very important. Even a lot of people cannot do that. That's why this technology is great. You don't have to be a math genius because the program will help you to optimize your cash flow. So they tell you exactly what amount you're gonna move from what account to account, right? So that's very straightforward. Um, but sometimes I find even just like Jimmy said, if I don't pay off bank extra money, they still save a lot of money just from optimizing my cash flow. But I can't because once the math is figured out, the computer program will find a way to make this extra payment, right? Because before I didn't realize, I always wonder. I knew the concept paying off debt earlier will save money on the interest, but I just couldn't figure out how because there's so many bills payments come with a different day. They all don't align perfectly with each other. It's just really hard to find the saving where I have extra money to pay off my debt earlier. But this computer can help. That will definitely show because I punch in my numbers to come with the solution and it works.
Right.
So
So
Yeah,
you're
that's
saying that with this program, you've managed to truly actually save because you said that, honestly, lately, with the baby and, and actually owning a house, that
mhm,
your cash flow is very different, right?
yes,
So
exactly.
at this point in time, you can actually say that you've truly been able to save and save more than what you expected to.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I know there's some other type of services out there. There's some truly a financial planner that can do this for you. But thing is, uh, every day our financial circumstances changes, right? The needs, the wants, uh, the income, they all vary. So once they figure out a plan, you have to go back and see them again to pay extra money. And even within this period, this interim period, you probably lose a lot of saving opportunities. As opposed to this program, they can track your expenditures every day. Everything happening in my life, that going to be reflected on the program. They're gonna the program going to recalculate the optimal path to help me to get to my financial destiny.
Right. Well,
Wow, that's great. Yeah,
that's
and
really
Sheila, actually, I always knew this is possible. I think, but the principle behind it is called interest. There's an interest cancellation principle behind this, right? This is all mathematics, finance. It's definitely possible. And you know, the great thing is I also ran it as well. And you know, my 20-year mortgage has come down by 7.6 years without changing any type of extra payment. So
oh,
basically, think of like 7.6 years is, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars in your pocket that you save,
Yep.
right?
that's from the
Just
interest,
by
right?
using this program without changing your habits, without having to reduce any of your expenses, entertainment, nothing, right? Just
Yep.
by using the program itself, you follow the shortest path to success,
Oh,
right?
so
That's really
you
cool.
didn't have to change your eating out habits or the
Nothing,
way that you
nothing.
know, plan for whatever vacations and things like that. It's
Exactly, nothing. You
exactly
still
Yep.
the
go on
same.
the same vacation, same everything. You just follow the GPS. Essentially, the GPS the bank gave you is like, you know, the circle. You have to take,
Okay,
you have to go in a
Detour.
big
It's
circle.
the
interesting.
detour.
Yeah, a big detour to get to your final destination, which is getting your mortgage paid off, right?
Right.
But with the
And
program,
this is,
it basically tells you the straight line, like the
oh,
fastest route you can possibly take without
Yeah.
additional payments. Obviously, with
So
additional payments, it's faster,
so
but
when I sign up, I start to use that program. That's also one of my concern. Like always concerned. Oh, should I? How does it work? It almost sounds like a magic. Does that
yeah.
mean I have to cut my living standard by hugely, right? Because no, basically the program is based on math to find the little things you can save, put on the side, and pay off that as quickly as possible.
Okay.
But that's the interesting part because also drives a good behavior, create this kind of virtuous cycle in my life. Because once I have everything in front of me, I know exactly every penny I make, what it goes. I think that's very important in terms of from the budgeting purpose.
right.
Like a lot of people saying,
Yeah.
a budget is you tell money where to go instead of you wonder where your money went. Right? I have clear, 100% assurance. I know where my money is going on a penny basis. So once I see that, I start to feel like, oh, that's the money I probably don't really need. I'm going to get rid of it. I can do some what if analysis in this program. Let's say uh, we used to buy a lot of takeout food. We spend about like $600 just on dining. But when I start to look at this way, that changed my thinking. I started thinking, hey, what if I can cut that expenditure by half? Just save $100 every month. That actually can help me to pay off my mortgage like 3 years quicker than what's planned. Right.
Holy
So
cow.
those little things you start to
Mhm.
add up. So here's my testimonial. I have so this house I bought. I took out $1 million mortgage with a 30 years amortization period. Right now I only need to. I have another 7 years to pay this off completely. So think about that.
Wow,
7 years.
that's hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest that you just canceled.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
That's
So 30,
amazing.
that's incredible.
Wow. Okay, well, we're running out of time, gentlemen, but
Oh
this has
wow.
been
Yes.
amazing. So
Mhm.
thank you so much. I really, really do thank you for the insight. It's been amazing. I hope that everybody had at least one takeaway for tonight. And, we invite you to come back again. This is the Double Six group. We just want to be able to get together and help everybody get ahead somehow. And, with the joint efforts of a great community, we can learn a little bit more about finance and business and investments and entrepreneurship. And if, like every week, we are going to try and feature somebody different who can give us better insight as to what we can do as a community and as a whole, as a person, as a household, if there's a way for us to actually get to that elusive dream of a six-figure income or a double six-figure income. So please join us again. Watch for the person who invited you, ask them when the next link is. We're going to try and come back every single week. And this particular episode will be uploaded to YouTube. You can find us and do a repeat or send it to someone to watch and enjoy also. And it's under Double Six Group. Okay, so thank you so much, Jimmy and team. Both of you took the time out to spend this with me, and we look forward to doing another session very soon. Right?
Thank you. Have a great night.
Have a good weekend.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
Enjoy
for
your
everybody
weekend,
who's attending.
Take care. Bye.
Stay safe.